The great hall of the galactic court was filled with laughter. Alien nobles from hundreds of planets watched the center stage, where Earth's leaders stood in silence. Above them sat the Council of Queens, rulers of the strongest empires in the galaxy. Each queen wore golden armor, their eyes sharp and cold. They looked down at the humans like they were insects. One of the queens, tall and covered in silver scales, stood and spoke. "We gave you a chance," she said with a cruel smile. "And still, you remain the weakest. You offer nothing to this galaxy but chaos, emotion, and dirt." The hall roared with laughter. Screens across the galaxy showed the scene live. Billions of alien citizens watched the broadcast and laughed at Earth's shame. In schools, alien children were already learning a new joke. What do humans bring to the table? Just a chair, and they trip on it. The human delegation looked tired. Their faces were pale. Their leader, Ambassador Lin, tried to speak. Her voice shook. "We only want peace. Respect." Another queen interrupted her with a smirk. "Respect is earned, not begged for." Behind Lin, a young soldier clenched his fists. His name was Ace. He had seen good people die. He had watched entire cities fall under alien attack, yet humans were being called dangerous. The irony burned in his chest. "We helped during the plague on Varelia," Lin continued. "We shared our medicine, our food. We didn't ask for anything, just friendship. And that," a third queen said, laughing, "was your mistake." The room exploded with cruel joy. Jace looked around. No one was defending Earth. No one cared. To them, humans were just background noise in a galaxy filled with brighter stars. Then, the lights flickered. It was small at first, just a soft blink. But then it happened again. The screens glitched. A low hum echoed across the room. The queens frowned and looked around. The laughter died. From the back of the hall, a door opened. A man walked in. He wore no armor, no weapons, just a long, dark coat and old boots. His face was calm, eyes sharp. He didn't walk like a soldier. He didn't walk like a servant. He walked like he belonged. But no one recognized him. "Who is that?" one queen asked. "No records," whispered her guard, scanning his tablet. "He doesn't exist." The man kept walking. Slow, steady. The human guards didn't stop him. In fact, they stepped back as he passed. Even Ambassador Lin froze. Jace stared, unsure if he was dreaming. The queens stood in confusion. One of them snapped, "You have no right to be here. Guards, remove him." But the guards didn't move. Then the man spoke. Just 4 words. "Is this your justice?" His voice wasn't loud, but it echoed through the hall like thunder. The screens returned to normal. The lights stopped flickering. The hum faded. Silence filled the room. A queen tried to laugh again, nervously. "What is this? Some human trick?" But her voice cracked. The man looked up at the queens. His eyes were deep, not with hate, but with something older, something heavy. He stepped forward and pointed to a floating hologram behind the queens. It showed Earth's broken cities, burning forests, and crying children. "You mock us," he said, "while showing what you've done to us." A new silence fell across the chamber, cold and heavy. "We gave you peace," said one queen. "You gave us fire." "No," the man replied. "You gave us fire first. You just didn't expect us to survive it." One queen raised her hand, charging a glowing orb of energy in her palm. "Be silent, or I will erase you from existence." But before she could fire, her weapon flickered, sparked, and then melted in her hand. The room gasped. The man didn't even blink. He looked around the room, at every alien who had laughed, every queen who had called humanity a joke. And then he smiled. Not a smile of anger, a smile of warning. A smile that said, "You have no idea what's coming." The queens, for the first time in 100 years, took a step back. And somewhere, across the galaxy, someone watching the broadcast whispered, "Who is he?" No one had an answer. But deep inside the Earth's delegation, hope began to rise. Because finally, someone had walked in. Someone the stars would never forget. The room stayed silent long after the stranger had spoken. The queens didn't know what to do. For the first time in many years, they felt something they hadn't felt in ages: uncertainty. The man stood calmly in the middle of the grand hall, hands behind his back. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't show fear. He just waited. His eyes slowly moved from queen to queen. None of them could meet his gaze. Ambassador Lin tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Who are you?" The man turned his head slightly. "Does it matter?" A strange energy moved through the room. Every scanner, every sensor tried to identify him. Nothing worked. Alien systems, built with the most advanced tech in the galaxy, failed to read his DNA, his heartbeat, or even his name. "He's not in any record," one alien officer whispered to a queen. "No birth, no family, no rank. He's blank." One queen, her skin glowing green under her crown, stood and narrowed her eyes. "Enough games. State your name and purpose." The man looked at her. "You may call me whatever helps you sleep tonight." Gasps spread across the crowd. No one spoke to the queens like that, ever. A younger alien noble, angry and trying to impress the queens, stepped forward and pulled a weapon from his belt. It hummed with power. "Watch your mouth, human." The man didn't move. He simply glanced at the noble. The weapon sparked, shut down, and fell from the noble's hand, smoking. The young alien stumbled back, eyes wide in fear. What are you?" he whispered. The man said nothing. Jace, the young human soldier in the delegation, couldn't stop staring. He leaned toward Lin. "I've never seen anyone like him. He's something else." Lin nodded slowly. "He's not one of us. At least, not anymore." One of the queens, perhaps the boldest of them all, rose from her throne and stepped down the platform. Her crown glowed blue, and the floor lit up beneath her with each step. She stopped a few meters from the man. "I will not be threatened by a ghost," she said coldly. "You think your tricks make you powerful. You are just one man. We are an empire." The man tilted his head. "And yet, you're afraid." Her eyes narrowed. "Prove your worth. Show us what you are. Or leave." The man said nothing for a moment. Then, he walked over to a nearby human guard. An injured one, slumped against the wall. The guard had been hit earlier by a riot blast. His leg was broken, and his breathing was weak. The man knelt beside him. "May I?" The guard barely nodded. The man placed his hand gently on the soldier's chest. A soft light, gold and white, spread from his fingers. It looked like sunlight and lightning mixed together. The entire hall watched in silence. Seconds later, the guard sat up, his eyes wide. His wound, gone. His leg, healed. His breathing, steady. The room erupted in whispers. "That's not medicine. That's not tech. Is it? Some kind of ancient ability." One queen whispered to another, "I've only heard stories like that, from the Age of Origin." The green-skinned queen returned to her throne and looked at her officers. "Run a deeper scan. Use forbidden tech if you have to. I want to know where he came from." The scan results came back moments later, and they made the room colder. "Not possible," said the head scientist. "His energy signature matches something from Earth's ancient archives. Something locked away. Thousands of years old." "Is he a clone?" someone asked. "No, he's not made. He's preserved." The man finally spoke again. "You ruled this galaxy with fear. You humiliated Earth, thinking we had nothing left. You forgot one truth." He walked toward the center of the stage. "We do not forget." The queens said nothing. The audience said nothing. The galaxy, watching from a million screens, felt something change. Not just in the court, not just in the room, but in the balance of power. The man looked around once more. You think humanity is a joke. You'll learn soon enough. He paused, then smiled faintly. The punchline hurts. Then he turned and walked to the center of the human group. Jace stepped back to let him pass. The man stood tall and silent. Behind him, one of the alien officers whispered, terrified, "He's not just a man." "No," the Queen replied, her voice shaking slightly. "He's a reminder of what happens when Earth stops being quiet." The room stayed frozen. No one dared to move. Even the guards who once proudly stood beside the alien queens now shifted uncomfortably. The man's presence was heavy, like an invisible storm hanging above them all. And yet, he had said so little, done so little, but that only made the fear worse. Jace kept staring at him. The healed soldier beside him whispered, "What kind of human is he?" Jace didn't answer, because deep down, he felt it too. This man wasn't just human. He was something old, something Earth had buried and forgotten. Until now. The green-skinned queen, her pride wounded, stood again. Her voice rang out across the chamber. "Enough of this show. You think we fear you because you play with lights and tricks." She stepped forward. "You want to speak of justice. Then face it." She raised her hand. A spear of pure energy appeared, sharp and glowing. With one sharp throw, she sent it flying toward the man's chest. The humans gasped. But the man didn't flinch. He didn't move at all. The spear stopped, just inches from his body, and turned into dust. Not metal, not fire, just soft, falling dust that scattered at his feet. The Queen's eyes widened. She stepped back, for the first time, unsure. Then he finally moved. Not quickly, not in anger. He simply walked forward, slowly, like time itself was waiting for him. With every step, the floor beneath him lit up, reacting to something inside him. Something the galaxy hadn't seen in ages. He stopped in front of a nearby alien warrior, a 7-foot-tall brute covered in armor. The warrior laughed and raised his hammer. "You're no god. You bleed like the rest of your kind." The man didn't answer. The hammer came down, roaring with force. The moment before it hit, the man raised just one hand. And the hammer stopped, in the air, frozen, as if time itself had paused. Then it shattered, like glass. The alien stumbled back, terrified. The man turned slightly, just enough for the crowd to hear him speak. Power is not shown by noise. It is shown by silence. His voice wasn't angry. It was calm. Too calm. The silence that followed was different now, not out of fear, but out of confusion, awe, and disbelief. Jace's heart pounded. He whispered to Ambassador Lin, "We've been losing for years. Why didn't we send him before?" Lin shook her head. "We didn't know he still existed." "What do you mean?" There were stories. From Earth's early wars in space, about a protector. A human weapon that could not be controlled. So powerful, we had to bury him, lock him away. And now? Lin looked at the man. Now, we woke him up. At the center of the chamber, the man walked toward a large screen displaying Earth's name at the bottom. Labeled, Threat Level, Low. He reached out, and with a touch, the screen cracked. Sparks flew. The label vanished. He turned to the queens. "Change is coming. You started it. You thought we were weak." He pointed at the humans standing quietly, holding their heads high for the first time. "We were just quiet." The Green Queen tried again. "You speak of justice, but what do you really want?" He looked at her with cold eyes. "I want you to listen." The queens whispered among themselves. They had ruled with fear for so long. No one had ever spoken to them like this, not even other empires. But this man, this ghost from Earth's past, was not afraid. And now, their own people were watching in silence, unsure who to follow. One queen hissed, "You're one man, we are many." He raised his hand slowly, and the chamber lights dimmed again, not from damage, but from something older, something hidden in the very bones of the galaxy. Symbols appeared on the walls, old ones, alien ones. The historians in the crowd gasped. One shouted, "Those are war sigils from the first galactic age. No one knows those languages anymore." "But he does," another said, staring wide-eyed. "He's not just from Earth. He's from before Earth joined the stars." The man looked at them and said just one sentence, "Your galaxy was built on a lie." And with that, the walls of the chamber began to shift. Ancient panels opened. Hidden parts of the structure, unknown even to the queens, started to glow. This court, this chamber, this place of humiliation had once been something else. Not a court, a battlefield, a prison, or maybe a tomb. And now something inside it was waking up, because he was here. The chamber walls continued to shift, revealing old stone and forgotten metal behind the polished alien design. The queens stood frozen. The guards didn't know whether to attack or run. And in the middle of it all, the human, the ghost from Earth's past, stood perfectly still. He had not raised a weapon. He had not shouted. But the galaxy was changing around him. Jace stepped forward, whispering, "What is this place?" Ambassador Lin's face had gone pale. "It's not just a court. It's a relic from the First War. From before the queens were even born." "You mean he knew it would be here?" "No," she said quietly. He remembered it. All around them, the lights dimmed, and strange symbols burned across the floor. Symbols no one had seen in thousands of years, but the man walked across them like he had seen them yesterday. The queens tried to keep their pride. The green-skinned queen raised her voice, though it shook. "What are you doing? This chamber belongs to the Empire." The man turned to her, calmly. "No, this chamber was stolen. You sit on top of something you do not understand." He pointed to the throne behind her. The blue-crowned queen looked back. Her seat had started to crack. The floor beneath it was glowing, lines of red and gold running outward like veins. She stepped away from it. A loud thud echoed below. Another. And another. The ground was shaking. Everyone backed away from the center. Then, a circular platform rose from the floor beneath the throne. Dust poured off it, old and heavy. As it stopped rising, a strange cube stood at its center, black, smooth, and pulsing like a heartbeat. The man walked toward it. "No," the Green Queen shouted. "You don't have permission." He didn't stop. "You touch that, and you'll what?" He said without turning. "Lie again. Threaten more children." That one sentence silenced her. Jace looked at the cube. "What is that?" Lin answered, barely breathing. "We always believed it was a myth. They said Earth had one last weapon, locked away, too dangerous even for humans. Some say it wasn't a weapon, but a warning." The man placed his hand on the cube. It opened, not with fire, not with sound, with memory. Suddenly, the entire chamber was filled with light and images, projected into the air. Ancient battles, cities turned to ash, planets falling from the sky. Not just human destruction, but something far worse. Something that had no face, no name, just a force. A voice echoed around them, not from the man, but from the cube itself. It spoke in hundreds of languages at once, yet everyone understood. "This is your last warning. If Earth ever sends him again, it means the silence has ended." People dropped to their knees. Some screamed, others wept, because they understood. The man had not come to fight. He had come because Earth had decided to stop waiting. The Green Queen tried to step forward, tried to act like she was still in control. You think you can scare us with stories. The galaxy is ours. The man looked at her, and for the first time, she stepped back. You didn't just anger Earth, he said slowly. You woke something we had buried even from ourselves. Jace stepped forward. Why now? Why did Earth send you? The man looked at him, and for a moment, his hard face softened. Because a child was killed, and no one apologized. A deep silence followed. In the long history of the galaxy, empires had fallen for less. But this time, it was different. Because this time, Earth remembered. And Earth had sent a reminder. The queens were no longer sitting. Their guards had lowered their weapons. Even the watchers from other worlds, watching the broadcast across space, now began to ask a new question. Not, who is he? But how many more like him are there? The man turned and walked away from the cube. It closed behind him. This is the part where you listen, he said, eyes on the queens, because the next part is the part where you burn. Without another word, he left the chamber. No one stopped him. Outside, human ships had begun to gather, silent, unarmed, but they didn't need weapons now. They had him, and everyone in the galaxy, friend and enemy, had just learned what it meant when Earth stopped being quiet. The chamber was quiet now. The human had left. The ancient cube had disappeared back into the floor, but the silence he left behind was louder than any war drum. The queens stood in disbelief, their pride cracked, their power shaken. For years, they had ruled through fear. But now, fear stood with the humans, and it wore the face of a man they could not understand. Across the galaxy, the broadcast replayed again and again. Ships paused mid-flight. Councils called emergency meetings. News feeds were filled with one question. Who was he? And another, even more dangerous one. What else is Earth hiding? Back on Earth, the people watched the scene with quiet fury. No cheering, no celebration, just a shared heavy silence. The image of the human child's body, cold, alone, discarded by the aliens, played beside the footage of the courtroom and the ancient cube. Earth did not roar. It planned. In orbit above Earth, command stations lit up. Old systems turned on again, systems not used in decades. Red lights flashed. Long dormant satellites blinked back to life. Black ships, hidden in the shadows of the moon, opened their hangars. General Amani stood in the center of Earth's military command. She watched the footage of the queens, frozen in fear. She didn't smile. Prepare the response, she said. Her officers nodded. No one asked questions, because they all knew. The time for silence was over. At the United Galactic Council, panic spread. Ambassadors of powerful species whispered behind closed doors. Some demanded action against Earth. Others quietly sent messages, offering alliances. Everyone wanted to know what Earth would do next. But Earth said nothing. Not yet. Instead, a strange signal was sent across the stars. Not a message of words, but a list. A long one. Names, places, dates. The names of every human who had been killed, hurt, or humiliated in alien space. And the places where it had happened. At the top of the list was the name of the child. It was not a threat. It was a reminder. The Green Queen held an emergency meeting with her council. They're trying to scare us. They won't actually fight. They know we're stronger. But even as she said the words, her voice shook. A general spoke up. They didn't fire a single weapon. And yet, the galaxy shook. The Queen hissed, "We will remind them who rules." But she didn't sound sure. Because Earth had not shown anger. It had shown control. And that was more terrifying than rage. Back on Earth, secret ships began to leave the planet. Small at first, unmarked, but powerful. They didn't attack. They visited the planets on the list, silently, watching, scanning, and one by one, those planets went dark. No explosions, no blood, just silence. People disappeared. Systems stopped working. Entire cities fell into chaos, not from war, but from whispers. No one knew what Earth had done, only that it had been done without a single shot fired. The alien species began to panic. The queens sent ships to protect their colonies. They told their people to stay strong. But their people didn't want war anymore. They had seen the man. They had seen the cube. And they had seen the silence. At the far edge of the galaxy, a mining colony once known for mistreating human workers now sat abandoned. Not one alien remained. Only a human flag was left, burned into the metal floor. Underneath it, written in every galactic language, "We remember." Jace, now back on Earth, walked beside the man in a quiet field. "You didn't even raise a weapon," he said. The man looked up at the stars. "I didn't need to. Are we at war?" "No," the man said. "Then what are we doing?" The man turned to him, his eyes tired but sharp. "We're reminding them. We asked for peace. They answered with pain. Now we give them the gift they gave us." Jace nodded slowly. "Fear." The man said nothing. Because they both knew Earth was not conquering planets. It was changing minds. It was burning itself into memory. And the galaxy had finally realized. Earth had never been weak. It had been waiting. The galaxy had not known fear like this in centuries. In the past, when empires clashed, battles were loud and brutal. Ships exploded. Soldiers marched. Worlds burned. But Earth's war was silent. And that silence was worse. The queens could no longer sleep. They met day and night, surrounded by advisors who offered nothing but excuses and fear. The Green Queen slammed her fists on the crystal table. "We must strike first. Crush them before they grow stronger." The Blue Queen shook her head. "And what if we already waited too long?" The Empire had ruled for hundreds of years. No one had dared question their power. Until now. Now, even their own allies began to whisper, to doubt, to wonder if backing Earth might be safer. Because Earth was not asking for war. It was delivering memory. Every time the Empire tried to act strong, Earth acted smarter, faster. A colony where humans were once enslaved suddenly found its power grid hacked. A trade hub that mocked Earth's grief was swallowed by an economic collapse. No one knew how. No warnings came. The result was always the same. Silence. And then the flag. "We remember." In one council meeting, the queens discussed a plan to invade Earth directly. "A quick strike," one general said. "Shock and awe." But no one agreed. Earth was no longer just one planet. It was a symbol. And worse, it was listening. Watching. Always 10 steps ahead. Still, the Green Queen demanded war. A fleet of 500 ships was launched toward Earth. The most powerful armada the galaxy had ever seen. But they never arrived. Some disappeared into black holes that hadn't been there before. Others lost control and drifted into the void. One fleet returned home after 3 days with no memory of what had happened. Only one ship made it to Earth's orbit, and it didn't fire. Because Earth spoke first. A voice entered the ship's systems, not angry, not loud. Calm. Male. "You are being given a choice," the voice said. "You turn around, or you disappear." The captain hesitated, then turned the ship around. Back at the Empire's capital, news of the failed fleet caused chaos. The queen's faces were pale with fear. Their people began to riot. Even their own soldiers started questioning orders. "They've awakened something," one commander said. "Something older than war." In a hidden room beneath Earth's surface, General Amani stood in front of a quiet screen. She watched the data pour in, every signal, every reaction, every whisper in the dark. "Operation Echo complete," one officer said. "Phase 3 ready." Amani nodded. "Begin." Across the galaxy, old satellites, once used for human deep space communication, turned on. But this time, They didn't send out words. They sent out memories. Images of the child, his smile, his dreams, his death, followed by a voice. You laughed at our pain. Now we show you what pain becomes when it grows in silence. Billions saw it. Not just leaders, but farmers, traders, scientists, children, and hearts began to change. Some wept, some apologized, some joined Earth's cause. Because now, the galaxy wasn't just afraid of Earth, it felt guilt. The man, the one who had walked into the throne room, watched from an old hill on Mars. Jace stood beside him, unsure of what to feel. They're breaking, Jace whispered. The Empire is breaking. The man nodded slowly. We didn't need to burn their cities. We just needed to let them hear the truth. And if they still don't listen, the man's eyes hardened. Then they meet the fire we buried long ago. The queens, now desperate, sent messages of peace, apologies, promises. But Earth didn't answer. Not yet. Because now, the galaxy was listening, watching the queens beg, watching Earth wait, watching the silence grow louder, and wondering if this was just the beginning. The stars were quiet, not because there was peace, but because everyone was holding their breath. Across the galaxy, from frozen moons to burning suns, the message from Earth had echoed. The memories of the child, the warning from the man, the fire that never came, but could. Everyone had seen it. Everyone was waiting. The queens sat in their golden tower, their eyes hollow, their power fading. The green queen stared at the broken screen in front of her. They haven't answered our plea. We begged, the blue queen whispered. We offered tribute. We promised to change. But Earth said nothing. And that silence hurt more than war. On Earth, the people did not celebrate. There were no parties, no songs, just quiet streets, silent homes, and the weight of a galaxy watching them. The man who had faced the queen stood on a balcony overlooking New Earth City. Beside him stood General Amani and Jace. They're afraid, Jace said softly. They should be, Amani answered. But fear isn't what we want. The man nodded. They need to learn. To feel what they made us feel. Not for revenge, but so they never forget. A message had been prepared, not for the queens. For everyone. A final message. And when the time came, it played across the galaxy all at once, on every screen, every station, every starship. It began with the image of the child. He was laughing. Running through a green field on a colony world, chasing butterflies. A simple life. A normal child. Then came the screams. Then silence. Next came the footage of the queens mocking Earth. The courtroom. The laughter. The pride. Then, the man walking in. His eyes. His silence. The cube. And then, the final words. We begged for peace. We asked for kindness. You gave us pain. And when we cried, you laughed. When we wept, you turned away. So now we speak with silence. And when silence is not enough, we remember. And when we remember, we become fire. The screen turned black. And across the galaxy, millions cried. On the Empire worlds, people began to march. But not in war. In shame. Alien citizens brought down the statues of their queens. Soldiers laid down their weapons. Some even sent messages to Earth, offering to surrender, not out of fear, but out of guilt. In the throne room, the Green Queen sat on the floor, alone, her crown broken, her voice gone. We were gods, she whispered. No, came a voice from behind her. She turned. The man stood there. Again. She hadn't heard him come. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just asked, will you destroy us? The man stepped forward, looked down at her with tired eyes. No. Her eyes widened. You deserve to be remembered, not erased. He knelt and placed a small object beside her. It was a photo. The child, smiling. "Live with it," the man said. And then he walked away. Across the stars, Earth's ships began to return home. Slowly, quietly. Their mission was complete, not of war, but of truth. On Earth, Jace stood at the grave of the child. No grand speeches, just flowers. A quiet moment. Beside him stood the man. "He didn't die for war," Jace said. "No," the man answered. "He died because they stopped seeing humans as people." Jace looked up at him. And now they remember. The stars still burned. Ships still flew. Trade still happened. But things were different now. When people saw a human, they no longer laughed. They bowed. Not because humans were gods, but because humans had suffered and forgiven. Earth had not conquered. It had taught. And the lesson was written in silence, memory, and the face of a child who would never grow old. The galaxy had learned the truth. You do not mock the quiet ones. You do not strike the hand that offers peace. And you never, ever hurt their children. Because when you do, Earth remembers. And when Earth remembers, the stars will never forget.